Hey everybody, this is Kite Altair here, and in this video I'm going to show you guys my homemade formicarium that I made. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it and I'll tell you guys more about it. Let's go. Alrighty guys, so as you guys can see, all my weeks of hard work in building this has finally come together. So far it looks like I have 4 parts, as of right now at least. I have a formicarium here. This is a hygrometer, my air unit, and my heating unit. So first things first is the formicarium. So with the formicarium ant farm, the way I decided to make this, it has 2 faces, 1/4 inch plexiglass on either side, and that's just to make sure it does not break, or there's the most resistance possible to ensure it doesn't break. And then I have a face on it, this cover. And then on the walls inside of the formicarium, I have plexiglass, albeit thin plexiglass, lining all around it. And the point of having the thin plexiglass inside of it is just to ensure that the water can't seep into the wood and cause rotting, and ensure that the ants that are inside, that are going to be inside, can't chew themselves out of this formicarium. So that's why I have the plexiglass. And as an added measure to ensure that no water gets out, I also have a layer of silicone that is covered by this cover, and it's all around. It's a pretty thick layer that I applied, and that just makes sure that there's any small little crevices or small little imperfections in the design that could allow water to escape or the ants to escape as well. Now, I know the first question would be, why do you have so many screws? Well, when I was doing testing, I actually realized that every 2 inches from where you put the screw, the plexiglass rises up a little bit. So just to stop that from happening, I just put it in 2-inch intervals all around it to ensure that that doesn't happen and keep a level seal throughout the formicarium. So the only way that you can actually get out, that ants could get out, are through these 4 tubes, 2 of which are capped right now. These 2 are only uncapped because the air unit is pumping air in, and the hygrometer line, the sensor line, is the probe is inside of it right now. But this is just for experimentation purposes and is not how it's actually going to be once it's fully operational. How I will have it, if you looked at the other video I posted talking about the J-Box, this air pump will actually be connected via tubing to a J-Box, which connects to the formicarium, and the air will be taken to this formicarium and all others that are connected to it, as well as it'll serve as a highway of sorts for the ants to go through. So if you want further explanation, I would advise you to look at my video, since I talk about that in more detail. Now, as added protection, these covers, they do serve to make sure that, the plexiglass stays centered and stays level, but what they also do is protect the face of this formicarium from direct contact with the floor if it were to fall. So I'm going to give you guys a closer look at it, and then we'll discuss it further. So let me go ahead and grab you guys. Alrighty guys, so if you look here, and let's turn this heat lamp off. If you look closely right about here, you can see where the plexiglass ends, and you can see that there's a gap. Now this is additional protection that I made to ensure that when it hits the floor, it protects the plexiglass. So even if it hits at an angle, you have this 1/2 inch gap on all sides. If you look here, you see the gap. Look here, you see the gap, and it goes all around. So also, if you look here at the border, you see here's the plexiglass, and you see this other 1/2 inch gap. So when this falls on its face, the impact hits the cover, but the plexiglass itself is protected. Now, unless you have something that's really small or something that's pointed, jutting out, the plexiglass is going to be protected from most falls and damage. And all this was done because I understand that sometimes mistakes happen, different things, just freak accidents happen, and it could cause an issue with the safety of the plexiglass and the ants, because if somehow the plexiglass broke, which is why I have the 1/4 inch, and the ants got out, they would all have to be destroyed. And to mitigate that, I have this. Another thing I also have is these tubing straps. So the point of these is, if you look closely, you can actually see a slightly larger piece of tubing that the tubing strap is connected to and is securing. What that does is ensure that the tubing cannot be fully inserted or fully taken out of the formicarium, which, because of that stopping any real accidents, accidentally tugging at it or whatnot, that ensures that the ants don't get out. Now, when I cut the hole to put the tubing into the formicarium, I actually made sure that it fit the exact measurement of the tubing. And what that does is ensure that when I insert the tubing, there is only enough space for the tubing to fit through, but not enough for any ants or anything else to fit into. And then when you add the tube straps that I have as well, that further ensures its safety. So you see, these are capped. The point of these two are actually going to be where what connects to the J box. One tube, doesn't matter if it's the one above or below, is going to be connected to the J box, and the other one, the second one, I just made just in case I decide to change the design a little bit, just to make sure I have that freedom of change. So I just put a second one on there just to be safe. Now, when you look at this side, this side's a little different. So with this side, what's going to happen is this will be an actual water line when it's an operational configuration. This is where I'm going to put the water. So it's going to have a filter with this design with the tubing strap and a tube sleeve over it, securing the filter, and that'll be where I can put water through to water the formicarium, to water the ants. So I'm just having this here for testing purposes. You can see that I have the tubing strap connected to the nipple of the air pump, which fits into a slightly larger tubing, which fits into a slightly larger tubing, which fits into the formicarium. And this will be the hygrometer line, which this is. This probe that you see inserted into the tube is what's going to tell me the temperature as well as the relative humidity of the formicarium. And the point of that is just for me to be able to tell, is it too hot or cold? Do I need to add more water? Things such as that. So that's the whole point of it. Now, when this is an operational configuration, it's going to have the same type of filter that this water line, soon to be water line, will have to ensure that the ants can't get in or out. More ants can't get in, none of the ants can get out. It'll all be protected. And I'll show you guys that once I actually start putting the ants in, ordering them and whatnot. Look at my previous video talking about the PPQ526, which tells you how you can legally buy queen ants in the United States. All you got to do is just look at the videos with the USDA. I explain the whole process there. So if you want to know how to get your queen ants legally, it's a quick, easy process. So another thing that I have is my heating lamp. Now, this one I bought from a pet store. I believe it was PetSmart. And basically what I have, it just faces the back portion of the formicarium, and it just provides a heat source. Now, with me actually living in a very cold area, I just want to ensure that the ants are protected. So this is my whole entire unit. Have the hygrometer with temperature, you have your air pump, formicarium, and you have your heat lamp. So let's go ahead in the more expanded view so I can give you additional details on how I made this. Alrighty guys, so we're back in our expanded view. This actually took a few weeks to make, but I think it's pretty well worth it. Let's bring this down a little bit. I think it's pretty well worth it having this formicarium set up. I know there are some people, a lot of people actually want to get into ant farming who actually buy the formicariums at another, online store, such as you might buy from Ants Canada, you might buy it from some independent supplier or whatnot. But with me, I decided that it would be a good idea for me to make this. Only costs around $50. Because if you think about it, when you have an entire, formicarium, let's say from Ants Canada, for example, or just any independent seller in general, if it were to drop, if it were to somehow break, unless you have the skills and the necessary materials to actually repair it, for most people, they would just throw it away, call it a day, buy another one. And depending on who your supplier is, it could cost anywhere from, it costs $50, $30 to $100. The thing that I like about my formicarium is that the only thing that can really break is a plexiglass. And the plexiglass is not even that expensive. The only thing that really breaks would be the faces of it, and that would take $5 or $10. First, I have to remove all the screws. Then I have to replace the plexiglass, which costs $5 to $10. And then I just use the drill press to drill the holes in it, put the screws back in, and we're set. So instead of having to replace an entire unit, I just replace one part. Now, it's more expensive because it's one isolated purchase when you're just beginning to make the entire unit. However, in the long run, you save a lot more money as opposed to spending $50 or $100 on someone else making it out of plastic or acrylic or whatever they decide to make it out of. Because if that breaks, you have to replace the whole unit. If this breaks, I just replace the plexiglass, because unless it's getting crushed by a truck or something, the wood isn't going to really break, nor is it going to be in a situation where something heavy enough to break that wood would break it. And at that point, if the wood got so old, so brittle or whatnot, at that point I could just replace it. But so much time would pass from me making it to me having to buy another set for the wood framing that it's well worth the purchase, to be honest. But people are free to make, whatever decision they want to. I'm just discussing why I decided to go ahead and go along with making this unit how I did. And for additional information, I just forgot about this. This is sphagnum moss in here, and the reason why I actually decided to put that in is for the water retainability. So instead of me having to water it, use the unit, once a week or whatnot, by putting that sphagnum moss in, that actually saves me from having to water it maybe once every 2 weeks or maybe even once a month, depending on what the humidity is with the hygrometer. So that's basically all that I have, honestly. This did take a while to make, but since this is my first time making an actual working formicarium, it's gonna take a while. But as I get more used to making things such as, when I make the Outworld, make the J-Box and whatnot, it'll be a lot easier. So thank you guys for watching. This is Kyle Altera here. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. And in the comment section, tell me, how do you guys feel about, my creation? Do you guys have any ways that I could make it better? Little improvements that I can make? And how do you guys go about getting your formicariums? Do you make it yourself, or is that something that, you just buy online? And where do you buy it from? So we'll have a discussion in the comments below. But thank you guys for watching. This is Kyle Altera here, and I'll see you guys next Friday.